Graham was a 30-year-old man with an average life. He felt that he was nothing special. He had an average job, and he could count his friends on one hand. He had one sibling, a sister, and had grown up in the same house that his parents still live in. Lately, though, he'd begun having nightmares nearly every night. In his dreams, he would witness two people arguing, a man and a woman. Then he sees someone kill the man. He sometimes sees this as though he is the person killing the man. He can see the blood, he can feel the knife in his hands, and he hears the man take his last breath. During the dream, he's constantly trying to yell, "Stop!" while watching this scene, but he always feels as though he can't open his mouth, that he cannot, as hard as he tries, get his voice to come out. Graham had been waking with a start and soaking in sweat. He'd begun to think about these dreams while he was awake, and they were bothering him to the point where he'd become afraid to fall asleep, so he decided to speak to his therapist about them. His therapist told him that she thought that he was probably working through some of his childhood issues. As a child, he'd watched his parents get into horrible fights, which often ended with his father storming out of the house, leaving, sometimes for days, while his mother wept and wept. When he was small, he tried to yell at his father to stop, but he just could not get his tiny voice to be loud enough to be heard, and his therapist told him that this was probably what he was dreaming about now, trying to give that little boy the empowerment to yell stop. She suggested that rather than yelling the word stop, that he try and tell himself, in his dreams, to yell something safer, something light, like maybe the word yellow. That very night, Graham began to have the dream. He saw the man and the woman arguing. He saw the man grab the woman, and Graham was trying to yell stop, like the dream always went. Then Graham saw the killer hit the man, knocking him down and standing over him with a knife. Graham was still trying to yell stop as the killer began to stab the man in the chest. Just then Graham remembered what his therapist had told him, and he started to try and yell, "Yellow! Yellow! Yellow!" Finally Graham had found his voice, and he woke up to himself yelling, "Yellow!" But Graham woke up to another nightmare, a true nightmare, his reality, as he stood over his father's bleeding body, and it was Graham who was holding the bloody knife. Then he heard his father take his last